All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is right now 6:47 p.m. on Tuesday, June 21st. This particular study session, this is our second study session for today, and this one's on Warren Valley Golf Course. One of the initiators, of course, I scheduled it, but there was a resolution put in place by Councilman Tom Wenzel, so I'm going to give him an opportunity to go ahead and speak first, and then go ahead and go from there. Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Council Chair. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all the people that had the hand in organizing the Juneteenth events this past weekend. I was honored to attend some of them, and they were really, really a good, especially the one at the Richard A. Young Center. What a first-class operation that was, I'll tell you. Me and the family had a great time there. Thank you for everyone involved. Okay, now this golf outing issue, or not golf outing, golf course issue. First of all, I want to make it clear, that I have no ill feelings toward the Issa brothers at all. I've never said anything negative about them in public or in private. And on the contrary, I've had discussions with them, and I stated I preferred them over others because of their certain business experience. I've given them the ultimate support. I voted for them. And so I just don't like these different people stirring the pot here, causing frictions where there shouldn't be any frictions. And I've even heard, I've heard that they're cutting the grass. I mean, why should they have to put the bill to cut the grass? This is a city-owned property, and the city should have been there from day one this spring cutting the grass. And Issa brothers shouldn't have to be paying the money for that. That's unacceptable there, I'll tell you. And they're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. And, the Issa brothers, they're good for our community. They've created jobs. And, from there, I'm just going to say that I'm not going to vote yes on a contract that favors any public officials. I'm not going to vote on a contract that favors any potential concessionaires. The only contract I'm going to vote yes on is a contract that favors the residents of Dearborn Heights. Now, the Corporation Council drafted a charter amendment, sort of. Is that what, Gary, a charter amendment that you presented to us?
It's a resolution.
A resolution?
Proposes a charter.
Yeah, resolution that proposed a charter amendment. And it was kind of lengthy and not to say anything bad about Gary. He was writing everything he was given. It was vague in a lot of areas. But I just want to revise that and make it really simple. And in the charter amendment, I want to put in there, the only thing I want to put in is any sale of the golf course, which is described in the original bill, the sale from the city of Dearborn Heights between them and Wayne County, any properties in that agreement, any sale of those properties should be approved by the voters. Plain and simple. You could do it in a couple lines instead of pages and pages. And any renovations or additions or improvements over $1,500 to this property should be approved by City Council, and maybe even on a super support 5 votes. What is that? Majority. A super majority of 5 votes. And that's all I wanted to put in there instead of having these pages and pages of stuff. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman.
If I may make a comment.
Go ahead, Councilman. I'm sorry, Councilor.
Actually, the proposed charter amendment is very short, and even the charter language is short. Although this is consistent with what I've talked about in the past in terms of maybe just keeping the city from selling the property. There could also be something to be careful about it being alienated under some sort of long-term lease. That sometimes has ended up happening where you have a long-term lease and say, oh, it's only a $1 lease, so now we can do a 50-year lease with someone who essentially gets to end up using the property. And I could draft what the councilman is saying, but it's going to be about the same length if that's a concern.
Yeah. Okay.
I got nothing, Council Chair.
Okay. So for myself personally, my personal viewpoint, not as a body, but as a councilman though. I just feel that residents elect us to make decisions, and we start making charter amendments on this. Like, for example, this particular resolution here says that on a city-owned property, any type of, here we go, for the purposes of this section, north of the clubhouse, anything north of the clubhouse as far as development is concerned would have to go through the residents. And to me, that honestly makes no sense, because for the city and for the concessionaire, so let's start for the concessionaire, for example. In this particular case, the one that won out is putting out $3.4 million in improvements. $3.4 million. We're not talking about 3,500, that's a lot of money. And in addition to that, at least based on, I haven't seen the new contract as of yet, which is supposed to be here at the next council meeting, which is next Tuesday. So we'll be receiving that in the next couple of days, hopefully. But in that, there's also, of course, some money's got to be paid to the city on a monthly basis, which is $5,000, and 10% of the profits to the city. This is based on the initial proposal. Again, I've not seen the contract to know the final outcome before we vote on it. With that being the case, anybody that opens up any type of business, they've got to make a profit. In order to make a profit, sometimes you got to go a little bit outside the box and start doing things that can bring in more people into the golf course for him to make a profit. In addition to that, I feel that I, as a resident, and I, as a councilman, I would want something on that golf course. Yes, golf would still be part of it, and I think I've said it 3,000 times already. But also, it could be other types of entertainment that could be added on there in order for it to be more viable and longer lasting versus something that's not viable, not profitable, where in that particular case, we may potentially either lose the concessionaire. Again, I don't know what the contract says. We want something viable. So if being viable means, and I'm just throwing stuff out there right now, maybe during non-golfing times, they want to use it for maybe like people that want to go jogging. Maybe, in the winter, in the winter, cross-country skiing. Maybe tobogganing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a nice restaurant outside. I don't know what it is, but we are not going to leave it go up to a vote. Because if you're going to do it like that, then we should have a charter amendment that City Hall, excuse me, please. Then we should have a charter amendment that City Hall can never be sold. We should have a charter amendment that the Berwin Center can never be sold or have additions on it. We should have a charter amendment on the library, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Residents elect council members to make a decision on their behalf, and they have to make decisions on behalf of the residents. This is how I feel about this, and go ahead, Councilman.
Council Chair, I don't know if you were listening to what I was saying, is the new language would not involve any of the things you were just talking about as far as the people voting on all those things. All I said was it'd be up to the people to vote if the property was ever sold. That's the only thing.
That one is much simpler, but I'm referencing the resolution.
That's why I said forget that one now.
Okay.
I'm saying let's make it simple, Any improvements on the golf course go through city council. They elected us to make the decisions. But I think the voters are the ones that egged on the city council back before I was on city council or the mayor when this all went down. There was talk going on about how we were on city council when this happened, and we weren't. Myself and the mayor and I don't know. Well, I have obviously Mo and Hassan, but this was done by persuasion of the voters to buy this. And if someone comes along, halfway through the year and says, "Hey, I want to buy the golf course for $100 million," we'll just take $60,000 of that and have a special election the next week, or as soon as we can get an election. You don't have to wait you can get a special election anytime you want.
Okay.
But
Somebody wants to sell it for $100 million, buy it for $100 million. I would definitely let the residents make that decision. And I'll be even the first one to say, hey, if you want to spend $100 million to give it to the city if Dearborn wants to buy the golf course,
that's all I'm saying. I said, let's make it simple,
Take it to
the
the
language
voters.
simple.
I'm gonna vote yes.
Like Mr. Miyake said, it's still going to be a couple pages, but basically, only restrictions are, the sale of the property that's described in the original bill of sale between Wayne County and the city of Dearborn Heights, any sale of that property or or dwellings on that property, we go through the voters.
Now, the $1,500 amount, you're saying if there's any type of improvement that the city's gonna pay for, has to be approved, or if
Any kind of
anybody pays
improvement.
for?
Anything we own the property.
Right?
Right.
So any type of
Any kind of
improvement,
improvement should, I mean,
without regard to who's paying for it.
yeah, I mean, it should be, up to us to decide, what.
Someone wants to add a swimming pool, they'd have to come in front of city council, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and who wouldn't want a swimming pool?
I would.
I said I would too. Who wouldn't?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Who wouldn't want a swimming pool?
But I want you to know, if, let's just say they put up,
Talking to the mic.
if renderings were put together and a bunch of things were gonna be done, are you gonna look at the rendering and say, okay, well, this, swing set's gonna be able to be approved, the swimming pool here's not gonna be approved? Or are we gonna look at the rendering and say, hey, this all looks great, let's move forward?
Yeah, well, whatever we look at, that's our job.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you, and I'll say it here publicly, you want me to tell you what I would love, my personal, as a councilman, vision for that property would be? If that property can have a golf course on there, but in addition to that, have something fairly similar, to give you something like a local reference to be able to look at, to what was at the Fairlane Club, where you'd have either, tennis courts, you'd have a swimming pool outside, a gym for the residents to use. So what I'm saying is it should be available to all residents, even non-golfers, to be able to use, and then make it more
Great.
profitable,
Yeah.
more viable, and then sustaining. Because it's something over and above just golf. And we have 254 or 58 acres. So we have plenty of space to do other stuff than just golf. And then this way, you can have more activities there,
I'm all
more
for
residents
that.
can use it, more seniors can use it, et cetera, et cetera. This would be my personal vision of it. I would love to see.
Why don't we just do one better? Why don't, somebody here, anybody that has any concerns, take a look at the Dearborn Country Club. It has amazing venues for like Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, where they're constantly bringing in things. There's a swimming pool, there's golfing, there's a gymnasium, there's a locker room,
Nice restaurant.
there's an unbelievable restaurant. And
Meeting
I'm a
rooms.
member there. Well, my brother-in-law is, I just use his, but same thing. What is that?
You're taking us all?
No,
taking them
no, I am, maybe Councilman Dave Abdullah could, he's got the money, not me. But I just want you guys to envision that, and I don't know if
Oh,
you've
yeah,
ever
for
been to
sure.
council, but
That'd
I
be
would
awesome.
love to take you
Yeah,
there.
that'd be awesome. I've been there.
But that's what I envision when I think of Dearborn Heights and what that should be at.
But you can't charge anybody though, a membership.
No, that's, you
have to-
can't, but I mean, but I'm gonna tell you, if you wanna be able to swim, concierge can tell you, okay, it's $10 to bring in for you and your family.
I don't know about
Well,
that.
if
Well,
I.
we're going beyond now, memberships and all that. We'll
Right.
discuss that later. Okay.
And I was just going to mention again, the,
Wait, I'm sorry. No, Councilman.
I said
The
Country
only-
Club, not Fairlane Club. Country Club 0 times.
but what I was going to say again, because we were talking about the length of the proposal, will have to be, whatever is put before the voters is going to be 100
Yeah,
words.
length is not an issue. Correct.
Right, so, don't worry about that. It's just a
Correct.
matter of me having to wordsmith it down and get everything in so that the state likes it.
Correct. Councilman, go ahead.
Thank you. And I agree with both Councilman Abdullah and with our Corporation Council. Anything that's pages and pages, people are going to take the time to read. They're not going to like it. They're not going to vote for it. And there was a lot of talk that, well, it'll just take 4 votes and the developer can buy it and put up. No, it takes the mayor, the council, it takes approval by the state. And again, nobody's talking about that. We don't normally want to put restrictions on property. Taylor Meadows, for example, they have a retention pond. They've actually stocked it with fish. So the golf course, which is built on a floodplain, serves several purposes. And, but I don't have the expertise to say, do this, don't do that. And if we're going to attract an investor to put in time and money, it's going to need to be something that's viable, something that has several uses. Like you say, like the Fairlane Club or wherever, tennis, golf, pool, workout facility, so on and so forth. Even the former developer, when he was there, came to us, he wanted to put in the machines, the simulator machines. We said, go ahead, great, because he said there's a demand for that. I'm not a golfer, I wouldn't know that. And I wouldn't expect that to the expense of that having to go on the ballot and discuss it with everybody.
But what I had noticed is any viable golf course, whether it's Shenandoah, for example, went to Shenandoah, I remember we were there at that event, that has multiple things that could be used by residents. The Dearborn Country Club is the same way, the Fairlane Club is the same way. That's my personal vision of it, is having additional things for residents to use, maybe that don't golf, but can still, see, so from my personal vision of it is an entertainment community with golf in there.
Recreation.
We're not talking about entertainment community as in housing.
Recreation.
Recreational community. Anybody else on the council?
Council Chair.
Councilman
At the end of the day, these aspirations and these visions and everything that we inspire for is just our opinion. And at the end of the day, it is just something that we can also be hopefully wishing for. It all comes down to the concierge and the decisions that he or she brings forward. And I'm sure the concierge that's brought forward is going to, ultimately bring on some contractors. He's going to have some rendering that are going to be done. And if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I share those same dreams, and hopefully we'll have a swimming pool there, and that's what I would like to see, believe it or not. That's an opinion.
Also,
Okay.
you can go ahead and, but also if you could address something, because I've had residents ask in regards to the contract if it'll be on this coming week's agenda, and obviously I haven't gotten all the stuff. Is the contract, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot here, but is the contract,
No, I've worked very hard on it,
Is it
so
completed now?
it's not like if it's not, it takes two parties to end up doing anything, and this is a big agreement, but this is where we're at. I turned over to the mayor and to the chief of staff where we are as far as we are at this time, which is most of the way. You'll see what the agreement pertains, what the terms of the agreement are at this point, and probably be able to evaluate whether or not you want to go forward with it based on what you will end up seeing or what will be provided to you. Mr. Shank and I are going to continue to negotiate stuff, and there are a few items, but they're not the big issues. The big issues have to do with the development language. When I say the development language, I'm talking about the improvements to be made to the premises, how much is paid, how much of a guarantee there is, what's the matter of the amount of rent, things along those lines, how things are going to be managed, if they're going to be managed. Those types of items are all addressed right now in what has been submitted. And, frankly, if the council as a body wants a different direction, you'll know whether or not you want to go forward with this and have us tweak out the rest of it, or if you're going to say, look, we want certain other things a little different here, and we're going to insist on those things. And if that's indeed the case, then we'll deal with it from
so to
there.
be clear, will the city council have the contract to look at by the time they get their packets on Thursday?
They will have a contract, a proposed agreement that was sent over by me to Mr. Shank, but it still has some details that have to be worked out, and I don't know if those details will be worked out.
By
But
next
you will
Tuesday.
end up, that's correct, but you will end up having the bulk of everything that matters, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, issues, I don't imagine that this body's going to sit there and say, Gary, we don't like your Title VI language here that you and Mr. Shank have been going over. You're probably not even going to necessarily understand those issues unless I explain them to you. And even then, you might be like, well, that's just something legal. We'll just defer to you. But you're going to be concerned about the stuff that we've already gone over. You're going to be concerned about the length. You're going to be concerned about the payment terms. You're going to be concerned about what requirements there are or are not with respect to development, what's anticipated in terms of development, what's required in terms of insurance, and those things have already been negotiated. So if there's an issue at that point, then we can address it, and maybe by addressing it, that will end up providing some clarity in terms of some further negotiation, I guess that's the
Council
way I
Chair?
would put it.
Just if you
Gary,
could, take one second, Councilman. I know you had gone up to say something else. Was that all you had to say, or was there something else?
Well, I was actually planning to just kind of summarize what I thought you were looking for, so I can know what I'm supposed to
In
work
regards to the resolution.
with regard to the resolution
Right.
for the charter
Okay.
amendment.
Let me hold off on that. Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Gary Miyake. Those 4 or 5 issues that you mentioned in the contract, that's more than we received on information about the contract in 3 months. That's the first time I've heard of any issue that was an issue on these contracts. Thank you. I mean, I've asked several times, and I've never been given any answers on what's holding anything up. Even though those aren't holding things up, they might have already been resolved or whatever. That's the first time anyone on this city council heard anything about this contract. Thank you so much for giving us that information.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Anything else from the council members?
So as I understand it, if I may, Council Chair, what we're looking at is like a revised proposed charter amendment that will be more simplified and have to do with sale, understanding that, for example, that's not where you're at in terms of things, but Councilman Wenzel, at least to move the discussion away from the whole issue of development.
Correct.
And that will be it.
And it's sale.
And-
And to clarify, obviously, at a study session, we would not be voting on this as a body. We would eventually vote on this at a city council session. And obviously, we may, at that particular point, debate whatever ends up coming in and then vote on it. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
And if I may, one point with regard to the sale being approved by voters. Part of the reason I've mentioned this, and this is something that does not apply to your body, but the reason why I've mentioned it is because essentially there's a hole in the whole idea of we're going to put a prohibition on development. And that is if you can sell the property, the whole development and the restriction on the city is not a good issue. But if you look at what's ended up happening with a lot of municipalities as they've gone through more austerity, what they end up doing is they sell off real property as a quick fix. And that can't necessarily be undone. So there's, if there's a concern that the property is just going to be sold as a quick fix to basically end up being able to patch a budget hole that another administration or another council is never going to be able to deal with because that property is gone. That's part of the reason for this in terms of the discussions that I've had. I just wanted to
Right.
point that out.
But in terms of development, if, let's just use hypothetical, 20 years from now, a city council body, well, first of all, they can't sell it. But if it went up for sale, then they could put deed restrictions on possible development and what have you. That's where you put in the deed restrictions at that particular point, if we were talking about selling it. But we are saying right now with this resolution, it'd be set up in a way where we cannot, as a council body, decide to sell it. It'd have to be approved by the
Voters. And that would be, and I would probably put in something about some sort of long-term lease or because again, if I'm going to draft something, unless, obviously it's not my call, it's your call. But
Right.
I mean, ultimately, the idea is to end up protecting things against people trying to be clever to evade these things.
Correct.
And
Loopholes.
there's more,
Otherwise-
right, and
Yeah.
there's more history to this in terms of some things that, as far as I'm concerned, cause me to have concerns about that potentially being
I
an
understand.
issue in the future.
I understand.
I mean-
One more item, Counselor. In regards to the $1,500 amount, I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I'm not comfortable with that because for $1,500, you could buy a nice bike. For $1,500, you could buy a nice plant. So to limit the administration and whoever's taken over that particular entity from making any changes, and everything has to go through the city council body, to me, that's too cumbersome, and it makes it almost impossible to get any type of work or continuous business done with a $1,500 limit. $1,500, I mean, I can name you 1,000 things, including at some restaurants downtown Detroit where you could get a dinner for $1,500. So to me, that's too low of an amount.
Only you
In
would
my
know those
opinion-
restaurants.
No, I
Council
didn't
Chair.
say me, shut up.
Told you, he's gonna take everybody out.
But in my opinion, that dollar figure, if we need one in there, in my opinion, I'd like to see that closer to about $5,000.
Okay, well, I'll try to draft it so that it's,
dollar amount is
the
open.
threshold can end up being changed, so depending on what your body
Okay.
wants to do with it.
Okay,
Sound good?
thank you. So any other comments from the council members? I'm going to allow people from the audience to speak, of course, too. Anybody else? Okay, so at this particular point, we have our city council policewoman here with us, Leslie. So I'm going to go to the Zoom meeting questions first. Anybody on Zoom that has any questions, concerns, or comments?
We're going to Zoom first.
We're going to Zoom first. Yeah, it's still on the golf. We're still on the golf. Anybody on Zoom?
We got nobody here on Zoom. I see Mr. Hassan.
Well, we have
Message
people
here, but-
on Zoom, but I'm talking about people that want to ask questions.
No.
Nobody? All right, can we get a thumbs up, Leslie? Leslie, can we get a thumbs up to go to the audience? Okay, thank you. So we're going to go to the audience next.
Rachel Lapointe, Merrick Street, Dearborn Heights. Perhaps instead of the 1,500, looking at something like a $5,000 or $10,000 limit, like where those renovations are actually something that you would want to have input on. I think switching it up to be the sale, I think that's a great idea. I think that sort of resolves a lot of people's concerns, because that is I think the big concern, that portions of the property or the entire property, and perhaps that might be something to consider, saying whether it's a portion of the property or the entire property to be sold would need to be approved. Because, yeah, I think that is the biggest concern that people have. They're worried that it's going to be sold and turned into a bunch of houses and they're going to get all this flooding, right? And there's no reason for you guys to put houses there. So, yeah, that's the big issue. So I think if you guys go with that, I think that will really alleviate the anxiety and fear and concern that people have. So, yeah, I like that idea. Good job, guys.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Come on up, sir. Please state name, street, and city.
Okay, Ron Buchek, Amber Trail, Dearborn Heights resident. I've talked to, like, around my house, my area, and at work, et cetera, in the public, at least 100 people, they want 100 out of 100 want that golf course to say a golf course, which that's what we're basically talking about. If you could put something simple in there, is like between the fences must be a golf course with some type of clubhouse to access to get in there to golf. Nobody cares what goes on the outside property, if it's restaurant, swimming pool, tennis court, et cetera, restaurant. But it's just that we the people elected our current president and all his staff, and we are going to, give him, or I would say him, his, political staff, all the rights to do what for us. And we don't like what he's doing, right? $5 gas. So whatever the council comes up with, be it, like the right answer or the wrong answer, you guys are going to make this decision, correct? So, like, if I don't want a swimming pool, I don't have any say-so in it.
Well, if I may interrupt you, you do, because on anything that we vote on, obviously, at the city council, you'd have an opportunity to be able to speak on an agenda item if we're going to be voting on
Okay,
it.
right, okay.
And you'll have an opportunity to be able to get a hold of your council members to give them your input, of course.
All right, and so on the other side of it, what is the actually current status of the golf course? Like, for instance, when would it be opening, or?
So on that, administration is one that's working on that directly with the concessionaire to get it open as soon as possible. But that as soon as possible is obviously when it's at the standards good enough for the person that's going to be running it and for the administration/mayor. At this point, as I speak today, it is not in condition to be open. I can tell you that for a fact.
No, because I know a few residents that have their back fence buttoned up again there, and they've been cutting the grass, you know what I mean? Because the grass is 2 foot high. And there's trees dropped and et cetera, but it's dry, but,
Yeah.
So, if it was ready, like within a month, I'm sure there would be a lot of golfers out there.
Hopefully, we can get this contract in place. Again, I can tell you, everybody's on board. There's nobody that I know of on the city council or the administration or the mayor or any of the department heads that says, let's slow this down as much as possible. Everybody wants this thing to move forward. But there's a lot of work to be done, whether it's contractually, legalese, and physical work, cutting the grass, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's on board for getting this thing done, and it will be done. Can I give you a date? I can't, and honestly, I've even had conversations with the mayor, and we've had conversations with the person that's gonna be running it. There's still a lot of variables involved, but it's gonna be done as soon as possible, because everybody's focused on it. Everybody. I mean, I can't think of one person that says, let's slow this down as much as possible. No one. Everybody's on board to get this done ASAP.
Right.
And we understand, sympathize, and get where the residents are concerned and why they're concerned. I'm just as concerned.
Right.
You know, I'm a resident of the city, he's a resident, we're all residents of the city. We get it.
And then as far as, well, we had that wind damage, there's a tree on like Lockdale, I think it is, in Amber Trail. It was on the news, and it's probably 3 foot, diameter. When is that going to be actually taken care of? Because, I mean,
All right.
people come from Livonia, everywhere, drive through there, and
Can you do me a favor? Unfortunately, our DPW director is left. I don't know if he's coming back in. But either way, can you email the chief of staff or myself if you'd like? I'll be more than happy to forward that to the DPW director
All right.
and have him look into that for you.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Corporation Counsel, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond. As to a charter amendment, I would recommend against saying it's going to be, that the golf course is going to be a golf course, is going to be a golf course no matter what. I think that's a bad idea in terms of a charter amendment. I think what's being done here, because we wouldn't do that with any city property. We might change, City Hall into a police station in the City Hall, whatever it might end up being. So I just wanted to mention that in terms of something that I would advise against.
Who's that?
Well, he was saying, I'm sorry, the gentleman was just saying, they want everything between the fences to end up being a golf course.
Oh, I
And
see.
I
Yeah,
would recommend against that.
Right, no, I understand. And obviously, no matter what, I mean, everybody's given obviously their opinion, and of course, we've heard the gentleman's opinion. Obviously, when that resolution is finally put together, all of us as a body will A, vote on it, and B, between then and now, different residents and anybody else can give their opinion to their council members, take whatever it is into account. So
Right.
it was his opinion, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody else in the audience that would like to come up to speak? Not surprised, come on up.
You shouldn't be surprised.
And that's in a complimentary way.
354 Rosemary, Dearborn Heights.
No,
Zuhair Abdullah.
and again,
Okay,
Mr. Abdelhak,
354,
no, I never want the address, just street name, city,
354 Rosemary,
So wants-
Dearborn
okay.
Heights.
He wants to say it.
No
let him
numbers.
say it.
It doesn't matter. I just have a question for Mr. Mayatki. If the city put, please,
Okay, go ahead.
if the city put RFQ out, there are potential bidders bidding on, they will bid on this contract. And the mayor who put out basically the RFQ called some of the bidders and asked him to withdraw. Is this legal?
This should not be done.
Is it legal? In your opinion, as legal counselor to this city, the residents?
Let me put it this way. I'm not going to be able to address that
Okay.
issue here.
I wouldn't be surprised if soon you're going to be let go. Thank you.
that statement.
No, I
Not
wouldn't be
appropriate to answer.
surprised because he doesn't want to answer resident question and he knows the answer. The answer is it's illegal. It's against the law. And if I have to take it to the Attorney General to void this circus, I will. Okay? And trust me, I have nothing against anyone, who's bidding on this. And I can assure you, Mr. Makki most likely is not going to bid on it if this goes to bidding again. So let's put that on the side, so I'm not favoring anybody. I feel the city council should do their due diligence. You should investigate what I'm saying. You should not be a part of this, because this shouldn't happen. I want the golf course to open more than anybody. I want it to be the icon of the city. And I would love to see it better than the country club, because that's $10,000, the membership at the country club. So just to know, I don't think anybody in our city can afford $10,000 a year. So please,
I was just giving an example.
I understand, Mo. I understand. I'm just saying, there is no comparison between us and the people who go to the country club in Dearborn. That's $10,000 membership a year. Ask and see that is a true statement. Okay? Anyway, I just hope you do not be part of something illegal. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If I may, because
go ahead.
if I don't address something, it doesn't necessarily mean that something is illegal. What sometimes I have to do when it comes to answering questions is I have to be concerned that my answers could potentially end up being used in some way that's going to end up harming the city. So many times I have to do things to protect privilege, and I have to protect confidentiality and secrets for a client in order to make sure that that client is protected. And the client in this case is the city. So I'm not sure what exactly Mr. Abdul Haq was indicating in this situation, but there's nothing that's been done illegally by me in this situation. And what I have to do is I have to be careful to make sure that nothing that I say can potentially harm the city. So that's the basis for what I've done, because sometimes I have to come out and say some things, but if it's not clear that I'm being directed to give that information, then I have to end up basically being careful not to say something that's going to end up, like if the council's a body voted and directed me to do something and give some information in terms of an attorney-client privileged information, then I would give that. Or, for example, we ended up having an issue come up about the Ecorse Creek, and the council chair at that time told me to go ahead and say something, which I had never said, but I knew well going back decades with regard to that information. I pointed it out. Then I'll end up saying it. But I have to be careful about what I end up saying because it can have ramifications for the city and its residents.
Okay, so,
I still have 30 seconds, I think.
We had about 25.
okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm not accusing Mr. Mayatki of anything illegal. I know for a long time you never done anything to harm the city. And I repeat that and I respect that in you. But when you're asked, I would appreciate straight answer. Since you are the prosecutor of the city, you should investigate if something was done illegally against the law. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience that would like to speak? Come on up,
Yeah,
and
one on Zoom.
no problem. But if you don't mind, please state, of course, street, city, and then name, and then if you're speaking as a city clerk or as a resident.
As a city clerk.
Okay, go ahead.
Lynn Senya, Kennedy Street, Dearborn Heights.
Thank you.
I just want to know, I know you're talking about the resolution and bringing it forward for the voters, but when do you want that accomplished? Because there is a timeline that we have to adhere to. So that's my only point. And I know that you called up to Lansing, and the due date to get it on the November ballot is August 2nd. So I just want to bring that point.
My idea is to get it done as soon as possible, regardless if it gets on this year or not. I mean, in the event we miss it, we'll have it ready for the next time. I mean, but I've been informed that things have gone on lots faster than a lot of other things. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience?
Sooner the better.
Okay, with nobody else in the audience, we have somebody on Zoom, Mr. Hussein Al-Haj. Please go ahead, sir. Please state name, city, street.
I hope you can hear me well this time.
Yes, we can.
Great. Through the chair, I would like to respond to Mr. Abdul Haq about his accusation toward the mayor. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, neither Councilman Baidoon.
Oh, I'm sorry,
But-
sir. Please state your name, street, and city, please.
And Hajj, Dearborn Heights, Michigan, Garland Drive,
Okay.
Wayne County.
Go
I'm
ahead.
not trying to put you or Councilman Baidoon on the spot, but if you both can recall, the bidder that Mr. Abdul Haq is referring to, who technically asked himself to be removed from the bidding process, even though both you, Mr. Abdullah, and Councilman Baidoon have asked that particular bidder if he would at least put his proposal out to you guys. And even though back then, he asked you guys to please continue what you guys doing, and he insisted he wanted to withdraw his bid. So those accusations from Mr. Abdul Haq toward the mayor are completely false accusations. And if you would like to hear more, I would encourage him to please come by next Tuesday. And as I promised last time, I will have everything ready for you guys next Tuesday. Thank you so much, Council Chair.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else on Zoom? Okay, nobody else? Anybody else in the audience in regards to the Warren Valley Golf Course before I close this particular study session up? Nobody else? All right, this will end this particular study session.